Welcome to the 200th. My name is Bret. This is my show. This is going to be a fun one because it's just you and me and we're hanging out. I dressed up. I have my fancy tie on. I haven't tied a tie in probably 4 years, but I still got the double Windsor skills. So I thought I would wear something, change the lighting, change the mood. We're going to get into it. I'm basically going to try to go through everything in my toolkit. And it's really not just my favorite Terraform or whatever. Like this is going to be, this is actually credit to Martin from the High Fivers group. Thank you. Thank you to the High Fivers that sponsor this show. And we hang out every month. One of the requests, I was getting requests from the group for the year. What are we going to talk about? And one of them was, hey, just tell us about all your tools. Like tell us the things you're doing and working on. And I think as much needs to be talked about on local tooling to just get your job done or to just do your day as it is, whatever the latest Pulumi du jour is, right? Because I think we can, I tend to have people on the show to talk about those tools, but we don't tend to talk about all the other stuff in our workflow, the utilities. I don't know if you're like me, but like if I see someone presenting, and Mac, it's a little bit easier, but I'm always distracted. And some of you out there, I think we've had this conversation. We're distracted by their menu bar. What icons are in their menu bar? What are they running? That person is super skilled. What are they choosing to run in their menu bar? So we can talk about that. I picked up a few new ones recently. So the menu bar is that if you're not a Mac person, it's kind of like the task menu, what do they call that? The sys tray in Windows. If you're an old school Windows person, it used to be called the sys tray. The bottom right where the things run in the background and have little icons, that's the menu bar on Mac. I don't know what it's called in Linux. It's just called a daemon. So if you're on a Linux desktop, I don't know what you would call that little area of the taskbar. But yeah, I want to talk about that as much as DevOps tools. But of course, DevOps tools. And then let's talk about AI because there's some stuff coming up. I got basically a spam email about an event that I'm going to share and talk about because I think AI, obviously, the news can't get enough of it lately because it's the new hot topic. Robots are taking over. And, we've been doing it for a little bit in tech, but it's like everybody's reacting to ChatGPT. And so everybody's trying to figure out how can we implement generative text-based AI into our tooling. And I'm interested in what you're looking at because I don't know every tool. So throw tools in chat. What are the tools that you're going to play with in 2023? It doesn't have to be a new thing. I'm just curious about your tooling and my, things that I don't know about yet, things that maybe have been around forever, but I have forgotten about that maybe I need to go back to. So what are you excited about? What is your favorite new tool 2022? Like what did you use most last year that you didn't think about? Anyway, these are all conversations to be had. So let's just jump in. By the way, thanks to everyone in chat. Thanks to James for showing up. By the way, if you haven't been to, I'm going to just plug James' channel. If you want to ever have a YouTube channel be plugged, giving me a super chat is the way to do it. Let's go over to YouTube and look that up. We mentioned it. I mentioned a couple of weeks ago. I kept looking for his name, and actually, I think it's just dive into it. Let's just try that. James is like, yeah, you should know my channel. Yeah, there we go. Another great Docker Captain resource, making long videos, like educational videos, and getting into this game. So I wish you all the luck, and I'm going to hopefully see you at the next conference, whenever we'll be. Hopefully KubeCon. Yes, and Kamajuru's like, let's party. I brought tea. I guess I'm partying with tea. And by the way, you can get swag from the store. It's below in this channel. And I'm going to be giving away 2 $50 gift, not coupons, but gift cards to my swag store. Have you not seen the swag store? So I have a couple of developer friends. Actually, let me get rid of Google Drive. I don't need Google Drive right now. Okay. Store.bretfisher.com. So there's a sale going on right now, 20% off. So this would be a good time to use the $50 coupon. So we're going to have some trivia here in a little bit. I'm not going to wait till the end of the show. So remind me in 20 minutes or something. We're going to have some trivia. And if you answer the questions, if the first one that shows up in my chat response as answering the question correctly, then we will, like, you can find me on Twitter or somewhere here, and somehow I will communicate to you, whether it's on Discord. By the way, you can do that here. Discord server, 12,000 people, almost 13,000. And you can communicate with me there, and then I'll get you the coupon code or the gift code. And you can hopefully buy something and ship it to yourself for free. Hopefully $50 will cover that, especially with a discount, 20% discount. All right, so let's just start it off, right? Like, just market myself here for a second. Redesign of the website just launched 2 weeks ago, last week? I don't even remember now. And we're relaunching the newsletter now. I think I've restarted my newsletter 5 times in my life over the last 25 years. So we're now on episode 2, just went out yesterday. So you can get on that at bretfisher.com. That link is over there in the top. You can probably get all the links for the podcast, newsletter, everything else below. It's trying not to be too much. I'm trying not to write a journal every week, just maybe throwing in some things that I see what's going on and mention some of the things that I'm working on. So yeah, and of course this week the big talk was about this show and what went into that. So if you want to join us, almost 5,000 subscribers there. I'm excited to get that started again and get everybody back engaged in the newsletter. We're going to be adding a lot more to the website, so just check it out, including a new course that we're launching starting in May. Sorry, not May. It's going to be in March. We don't even have that on the website yet. It's so new. I'm going to give you the URL right here. I'm going to put this in chat. So if you're interested in GitHub Actions, Kubernetes auto deployments, this is a brand new live course I'm doing. It is going to be my focus for the next few months and what I'm going to be working on. So check it out. Get on the, basically you can get on the waiting list there, because only the first 10 or so people are going to get into the first cohort or the beta trial. And it's not pre-recorded. This is all live. This is you and me, 10, 30, however many people. The first one we're going to keep small just to keep it maintained or be able to handle everybody. But the idea here is that you're going to be spending 90 minutes with me every other day for 2 weeks, and we're going to super drill in and focus on what you need for automated image builds, security scanning, smoke testing on Kubernetes, automated deployments to Kubernetes with rollbacks, dashboards with Argo CD, all the things for basically auto building, auto deploy. And so the presumption here is that you know Docker, you know a little Kubernetes, but you're not fully automated. And I'm going to get you there in 2 weeks. We're going to do it together. Hopefully you'll be able to take that knowledge and apply it immediately to your real world projects. That's my goal. Not some theoretical course that you then have to figure out how to apply to your project, but actually working with your stuff. We're going to do it together, a group of us, and we're all going to have different goals and different languages and different projects, but hopefully that'll all work and we'll figure it out. I'm excited to get this started. The first one is going to kick off in March. We've actually got the date set on this website. So check that out. If you sign up now, you don't have to give me any money now. If you just get on the waiting list, you'll get a large discount in terms of like hundreds of dollars discount. So check that out. I think the first date, do we have the dates on here? Yes, March 20th and 22nd. So that's when this is going to kick off. It's cohort based, which means you're going to have to be present. You'll get recordings, you'll get all the resources, you'll get all that stuff forever, but it is meant to be live while we're all chatting, asking questions, doing this together. All right. So that's that. That's enough of the marketing. I'm done with that. Done. All right. So let's get into the list because I have a lot to get through. Let me make sure that I'm not missing anybody in chat. Thanks everyone for showing back up for the 200th episode. Maz, Eric, Alexandra, Trent, everybody. Appreciate all of you for being here. So, wow, we got some people that have been on here for years now. Yeah, I just started this in 2018. So Thabit, sorry if I mispronounced that, but Thabit, I appreciate you for being here that long. 2018, it was actually on a different channel back then, on my own private, not, if you know anything about YouTube, you have like your own user account and then you have brand accounts, which means other people can help you. And so we had to move to a brand account. And back then, YouTube didn't let you move your channel. You were stuck. So we had to literally start over again. After already having like 3,000 or 4,000 people, we had to start from scratch. So some of you may have noticed that like the original live streams are actually on a separate account that's still out there. And Kube Simplify, what's up? So I'm going to see you. I'm going to see you soon. At by the way, we should just mention that Civo Navigate. I'm going to be there in 2 weeks. If you happen to be able to go to Florida, I know some of the other people are going to be there. Eric's going to be there. It's a huge list of speakers, and I'm quite impressed by the speaker turnout. Like, if you go to the list, it's like all my friends. I'm excited to see my friends. So we got Steve Wozniak going to be there. If you're interested in going last minute, I have a coupon on my Twitter, so you can go and get a significant discount on the fee there to get into that conference. But it's an East Coast U.S. conference. I'm excited about that because we don't get a lot of East Coast stuff outside of like New York and government stuff in Washington D.C. So we do have a couple of them in Raleigh. A couple. I know who you are. They're out there thinking that, oh yeah, we got those Raleigh ones. But I'm excited to be involved, and there's just like all these great people that I know. Some of these people, John Osborne, Victor, David, Eric, Neil. A lot of these people have been on my show, so it's actually kind of great that I'm finally going to see people in the real world. That's happening in 2 weeks. So you can just go to civo.com/navigate. Again, go to my Twitter or Kube Simplify on Twitter probably will have discount coupons if you want to get in there. So, and I didn't show you on the screen. I wasn't even showing the screen there. Let me just show that. That was a horrible mistake on my part. I've got a different setup today because we're going to be covering a whole lot. So I might be switching screens. Make sure you jump in the chat and tell me that I'm screwing it up if you can't see my screen. But yeah. So see, already some great chat happening right here. Tech, an interesting thing, NVIDIA to gaze. I don't know about this. If you're a content creator, corrects your eyes and where you're looking into. Yes. So someone just showed me this the other day and then pointed out, actually, I think it was my niece that pointed out that my niece and soon-to-be nephew were the ones that were showing me this. They're not in tech. So this tech of the NVIDIA stuff, and then FaceTime now does it automatically. I didn't even know this was a thing, but in the latest FaceTime, it moves your eyes basically so that you always look like you're looking at the camera. It moves it from looking at your screen to up a little bit if you're looking at your phone. So now the NVIDIA stuff's doing this. I'm a little creeped out by that just because when you're staring at it, if you really start staring and trying to see if you can tell if it's messing with eyes, you sort of it's almost like an uncanny valley where their faces turn with NVIDIA. Like it'll straighten my face. Instead of looking like this, it'll look like this. It's trippy stuff. And I think that's all in our future. I mean, we already have Zoom making our complexion look nice. What I'm worried about is that we're eventually going to we're all going to know each other on Zoom and on these video things. And then we're going to see each other in the real world, and we're not going to look anything like that. So I am a little concerned that we're all creating an Instagram future where we all look beautiful online. And so trust me, this is natural. Like you're getting all the gray. You're getting all the double chins. So there's no computational work going on in the background to make me look better. And I'm going to try to keep it real on this channel. So thanks everyone again for the 200s. Oh, nice. I'm glad I got the name right. All right. I'm going to jump into it because we need to get to it. We got so many things. Do they publish? That's a great question, Alexandra. Hey, Saeem, is Civo going to be putting these on the internet? I sure hope so. That would be awesome. Because I'm going to be making some new content there. I'm going to be talking about image security and tooling and stuff like that. It's sort of going to be a meta list. It's going to be like this, just a lot of tools and listing them all one after the other for people at the conference. Because there's a lot of great deep dives at the conference, but I thought I'd do something where I was like a survey and a review of all the things we have to worry about with image security nowadays. So let's get started. I would just start real quick with for 2022, my favorite cloud was still DigitalOcean. in 2023. So I'm going to try to mention what I did in 2022, and what I'm looking forward to in 2023. So when it comes to clouds, 2023, 2022 was DigitalOcean for me. That they added Kubernetes. In fact, I had this up, and I was actually just going to create a Kubernetes cluster in real time to show you how easy it is. I do have a coupon code for you to get you 100 free credits if you're interested. If you've been through my courses, you've already got one of those. But I will just throw this into chat. For 2023, I'm going to be checking out Civo, not just because I'm going to their conference, but because I'm curious of how. I've never been with a hoster. This is not actually true. I'm going to make this statement and realize I'm already wrong. I've never done a lot of boutique hosting. I don't really consider DigitalOcean boutique anymore because they've got so many different things you can do now, including advanced VPC-like networking, Kubernetes deployments, backups and restores. They have all the things that I feel like nowadays they have database, managed databases, stuff like that. So I feel like they're just sort of a second tier, full-featured cloud, where back in the day they were really just a raw VM cloud. But I'm curious about Civo and haven't had to use it yet in a big project. So beyond the demos, I want to get into it. So I'm interested in that because way back in my Node.js days, a decade ago, I was into, I think, a little Chicago startup. They got acquired. I'm not even sure if they're still around, and I'm kind of spacing on the name. But I was using a Node.js specific cloud pre-container. This was back before we had containers. And I loved it because it was so easy. It was like the Heroku for Node.js. It was even easier. And someone might even remember back in those days if they were a Node.js person. But we had a couple of experiments in clouds just on that. And I'm curious about Civo. But over here in DigitalOcean, you can just say create a Kubernetes cluster. I can choose my location. I always want latest. So 125. They can also do automatic upgrades or allow you to do manual meaning push button upgrades. But the upgrades are really great and easy. I can do auto scale, but I'm not going to do that. I'll do a fixed size, some basic nodes, 3 nodes, $72 a month for 3 nodes. Only 4 gig of RAM, which isn't great. Like you probably want more. The nice thing is, just like AWS, they will limit how much you can use so that you don't use more than Kubernetes you should, so that you don't actually hurt the performance, because Kubernetes does have to use its own system resources on every node, so it's nice to know how much is usable. I can add high availability to the control plane, which weirdly, until recently, I felt like a lot of Kubernetes hosters were not giving you this option, or they weren't making clear that maybe you didn't have redundant control plane on the back end. So obviously adding that adds complexity because it adds another node. Usually it adds 2 nodes, because you usually start out with 1 node in control plane. By checking high availability, it will burn 2 more servers on the back end that I do not have to manage. And, I don't actually know about this database management one. So that's an interesting one, a new feature in there that I haven't. Anyway, I can do all that and just say create cluster. And it gives me a nice little, hey, while you're waiting, would you like to learn a little bit about how this server is going to work and how you're going to get your stuff? So I typically do this when I want to test stuff. I will do this, and then I will spin up load balancers in front of it. I have my own, because they now do DNS at DigitalOcean. So on my demos, for example, I have my own domain that I keep on DigitalOcean, and I can then point that to the load balancers, and then I can basically have all my workloads front-ended by a nice high-end, network load balancer that's not necessarily software related, and then have a DNS in front of that auto-populates based on my deployment. So when I want to deploy something in a manifest file, I can then add ingress rules. It will automatically show up and add DNS. It's kind of great. And so it's very much, to me, the functionality of your basic to medium level Kubernetes deployments on AWS with a whole lot less work and complexity. So there's that. I don't know what your opinions are, but that was one of the things I wanted to get out of the way first, because I like the CLI. I like the GUI. I think it's nice and simple. I actually have, if I go to my CLI, so there's the DO control CLI for DigitalOcean, and you can see right now, for example, I only have a couple in there, one for my website staging server, but I have a little alias, and if I just, but we'll talk about Bat in a minute. By the way, Bat is another tool I use. Bat, this, I think that will work. Yeah. So all my aliases, and I have this alias, basically like right here to just create me a server in 60 seconds. And then I can jump into that server, do my thing on the internet, with the cloud VM. I need to test something. I need to test a Docker thing on Linux with x86. And I do that, and then I can tear it down. So I have an alias to spin it up, and then an alias to tear it down. And I use that, I don't know, a couple times a month just to test things, right? So you can do that with AWS's CLI. Maybe it might be a few more commands, but you can get away with doing it in DigitalOcean with a single command. Anyway, all right. Let me catch up on the chat here. Yeah. I'm actually wearing a breast cancer tie. It's actually little bras, but it was my newest tie that I bought for a charity event. So, oh yeah, Eric's got opinions on Civo, fast response and fixing things. Yeah, so I mean, when you not everywhere, but certain things when you're deploying on Kubernetes, you have to be careful with the cloud because it may not be obvious. And maybe this is all better. This was a few years ago that I really noticed this, and I just started to notice that there's now options or checkboxes to say, "Hey, I actually want my cluster to have fault tolerant control plane," which is crazy. Hey, thanks, Cube Simplify. I appreciate you. Got another super chat. All right. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Thanks for supporting the channel. Siam's here with the super chat. All right. Okay, the coupon for DigitalOcean. Let me throw that in if I didn't already. So this is a referral coupon. Gets you $100 in credits with a new account. You may be able to create a new account if you already made one. I don't know how they determine new account. It might be by, you probably do have to give them still a credit card number. I guess that's how most clouds prevent misuse, essentially with free signups for free credits, is by asking for a credit card. But I have confirmed recently that it is indeed $100 of credits, and you can get a nice VM instant on DigitalOcean that costs you $20 or $30 a month, and you can use that for months without having to pay any money. So, all right, next tool. Let's get to it. And then in a few minutes we'll do a giveaway. All right, so VS Code extensions. I have talked about VS Code extensions before. I'm sure some of you are curious. I don't have anything revolutionary there. I think let's see if I can switch over to that. I have this. We can just open up my extensions, and and I need a reload. But I'm a spell checker, so let's see. Is this the one that I'm using with? This may not be the one. It's kind of hard to see here. This may not be the one I'm looking at, but I have a special spell checker that uses Grammarly. Grammarly is my favorite because I am horrible at the only language that I know how to speak, English. So I use Grammarly. I actually pay for Grammarly because it's fantastic and it's way better than Word ever was, in my opinion. Or at least that's the closest comparison is to the advanced editor Word stuff in Microsoft Word. And so I do that, and I have several code spell checkers in there. I think Code Spell Checker actually just looks at the comments and stuff like that. I don't think it's actually the one that works with Grammarly. I am a huge Codespaces fan, so I do everything Codespaces all the time, especially when I want an x86 instance because I am on ARM, because I'm a Mac M1. I use ARM, and if I want to test something native, I use a code space first. Even though I have VMs in the closet and I have VMs in DigitalOcean, I still love code spaces. When I had an iPad, I recently kind of gave up my iPad, but when I was dual developing across iPad and Mac, I would often keep stuff in code spaces because code spaces work great in a browser on an iPad, surprisingly. It actually is really great, really good. I did not, I enjoyed it. It was like 99% or 95% of what I needed out of a native code editor. And if you're curious about iOS tools, I have a list here of those as well. Again, the plan is by the way, all these tools, even if I don't get through them, I'm going to list them all in a newsletter since I already have them in a list. I just don't have the list refined, but I'm going to refresh it and then put it in a future newsletter. So if you want to get that newsletter, go over there to bretfisher.com and sign up for the free newsletter, and you can get this full list in the next couple of weeks as I finish that up. Is someone really gifting memberships? Is that happening right now? That is awesome. Let me wow, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I've never actually seen these. The gifted memberships. All right. You gifted 5 memberships. I am so grateful. That is amazing. Thank you so much. You get Reggae Horn for that for sure. Thanks, Martin. I don't even know how to say it, by the way, Martin. Ansiq? I don't even know how to say your handle. But Martin, high fiver. I appreciate it. That is awesome. That is amazing. I really appreciate that. So you've got some surprises in there. People that now just got gifted a membership. That's really great. It's really cool. Yeah, it says gifted 5 memberships. That's the first time I've ever seen that. Didn't actually know that was a thing. All right, so what else in this list? Okay, Copilot. Let's talk about AI for a second. Copilot is just on for me. I am lucky, and I understand that not everybody can afford it. It is not free. I fortunately get it free because I guess I have enough popular repos that they offered it to me for free, and I took it. I pay for GitHub, but then they gave me the Copilot add-on for free. So I use it every day. It's just always on. And it fills in my comments. It fills out my Docker files, my Kubernetes YAMLs. It suggests every parameter I put into YAML. It's always making a suggestion. It is right, or at least functional at 80% of the time now. It used to be about 50% of the time. It's getting better. And it works great. In fact, it works very similar to it did a year and a half ago when I did it on this show. My friend Nirmal showed up, and for an hour and a half, we experimented with Copilot in VS Code. The cool thing is now, if you didn't know it, Copilot now works in other IDEs, which I thought that they might do, but I didn't know the roadmap. But you can now do it in Vim, which I haven't set it up in Vim. We can also talk about Vim plugins and all my favorite CLI stuff, which I have a whole separate list on. But let's see, what else in here is really useful for me? Live share. I mean, any of you that have used the remote stuff and the live share stuff, live share is awesome. It's the only way I pair now. I have tried all sorts of other things over the years, Tmux, all sorts of proprietary tooling, but live share, which technically is proprietary, it is open source, but it's proprietary in terms of it. I think it only works in VS Code. I don't actually know. They might actually have it support other IDEs, but it works great. I feel safe with it. It feels like I'm not putting things at risk, and I don't have to set up a third-party server to act as the go-between between me and the code pair. I do this a lot in consulting now, where I will work with clients and they need help with something DevOps, and I will bring them into a live share rather than just sharing screens on Zoom. And a lot of times they don't know about it, and it's easy to get started. They already have a GitHub account or a Microsoft account. They can sign in, and then my stuff just shows up in their VS Code. And the minute I want to show them new files or get them out, I can. It actually now has audio in it, so you can even just close down your Zoom and not even use Zoom and use the audio inside of VS Code for audio chat. And it does nice little things like it hides your dot files that might have secrets in them so that they don't accidentally get your secrets that you might have in like a .env file or something like that. It's smart in knowing which files based on name, I think, which ones are possibly the ones you don't want to share. I use the Sneak Security plugin. You might want to check that out. It's a cool tool with free features around looking at your dependencies and other. They keep adding stuff, so I don't actually know. Eric's on the chat. If you have questions, look for Eric Smalling in chat. And also, he's in the Discord server, so you can jump on the Discord if you have questions about this one. We should probably do a full demo because I haven't really shown it on screen since it was the previous tool when it was just looking at like dependencies and package JSON files, which is actually pretty neat. The fact that it can look at my package JSON file and show me by line which dependencies are outdated or have security concerns. But they do more now. You can see now in here there's infrastructure as code stuff, code quality. So check that out. Another one that I do is I am still a little bit old school when I'm working on, especially open source, and I'm maybe working on something myself. This isn't a great collaborative tool, but you could do it this way. If you've ever seen like to-do, fix me's, or basically in all cap comments, whatever your language is, you have a different comment. Sometimes, often it's hashtag. Then what this add-on does, to-do tree, it will highlight in my code and then even give me a little, like if I have to-dos in this one, it might show all my to-dos in this repo. So I'm not sure if that, yeah. So see, I have notes in the files or comments that are standard to do. So it's either to do, fix me, bug, note. I mean, there's other ones, but there's sort of a common by convention type of comment nomenclature. And when you do that, to-dos will actually help me find those later. So there's to-dos in the jQuery, which I'm not fixing. But that's a neat one for me when I'm managing a project and I maybe don't want to make GitHub issues for everything, and I just want to comment in line on, yeah, this doesn't work, or I need to improve this later. The that extension for to-do tree is exactly what I like to use, and so that's one that's not very common. Maybe it will help you out in your projects. I tend to do it in open source because whenever I'm working with a team, an enterprise team, we have a much more advanced system. You know, you usually are using something that tracks all of the requirements and whether you need to fix things later, and not doing that necessarily in code comments. But this one allows me to do it in code comments. So, yeah. So, and I don't know if anyone else has their own VS Code. By the way, throwing in chat your favorite thing when I'm telling you my favorite thing of a topic, please do that, because there's a lot of these tools. There's always other options that are probably better than what I'm choosing. I just have habits, right? Ajay, there is not a Telegram channel. I technically have, someone made me one in Telegram, but I don't use it. I'm not on that platform. I'm on Discord. So our whole community is right up there if you want to join in Discord. Other ones, I guess for 2023, I want to get more into CodeQL and start applying. They've now got some defaults out of the box with CodeQL, which does more actual code analysis rather than just linting. I lint everything. You've probably heard me on this show talk about linting. But the CodeQL takes it to the next level and actually looks at my code for bad habits, whether it's SQL injection, whether it's, defining variables that are at a improper scope or whatever. Like, it's going to do that work. But before, I never wanted to do the work of finding the rules to add in. And evidently, I've seen recently that GitHub has added more defaults. So I should be able, hopefully this year, start adding CodeQL to my repos and having it just sort of out of the box with my demos, inspecting the code. It's probably going to complain a lot about my code because my code tends to be very basic, very hello world with a lot of my demos, and it's going to complain. But that's, I think, a good thing because it would help teach people possibly how to implement it themselves. I have a lot of GitHub examples on GitHub around GitHub Actions, so I'm looking at adding this to GitHub Actions this year. I don't know if anyone has any comments on CodeQL. Anyway, So there's a lot of other stuff in here. .env files, if you're a person that loves .envs. If you're someone who likes the editor config standard, I recommend getting that. Editor config and .envs are sort of standards across multiple languages and ecosystems. I was turned on to editor config a couple years ago by a client of mine, and it allows us to standardize, regardless of your editor, the config of, does your YAML, are you 2 spaces in YAML or 4 spaces in YAML? And you can set that standard in the repo, and then each one of the editors, whether it's Vim or VS Code or whatever, you just have a plugin for editor config that enforces that in your editor. And so it allows us to all keep consistent regardless of what editor the team is using. Excalidraw, if you haven't tried this out, this is the drawing tool that's free and open source that allows you to draw it looks like it's hand-drawn, but it's a Visio diagram type of simplistic drawing tool that looks hand-drawn. It's how I make all my drawings now in my courses and in my blog posts. And there's now an extension in VS Code that allows me to just pull them right up in VS Code. The coolest thing I have about Excalidraw, the coolest thing it does that I've never seen anyone else do before, is it doesn't only just have a source format, which is JSON-based, because it defaults to SVG formats, right? So it's a JSON-based definition format. That means I can put that in the repo. But I can also make PNGs from it, and it stores the JSON in the metadata of the PNG. Why is that important? That means that I can now store not just SVGs, because SVGs don't work everywhere, and they don't always work in all of our editors and rendering engines. But if I want to store a PNG in a repo, and then I want to edit it later, I can edit it like it's the source file, and it keeps all the layers, all the colors, and Excalidraw does that internally, and it just throws in basically the Excalidraw file. It throws that JSON file into the PNG metadata. So that means I can give you a PNG, and you can edit it as like a network diagram, which is so cool. That's a feature they added to the open source, I think, like a year ago, and I've been using it now more and more in my demos, in my Git repos. I'm basically storing the binary PNGs in the Git repos, and then I can then make a commit of a new PNG just by editing that PNG in the repo by opening the file in Excalidraw. So check that out. That's a really cool one for me. And you see it all over the web now. Like Excalidraw has sort of gained a lot of popularity over COVID. It was a COVID invention from some Googlers. And I think Google Cloud now actually uses Excalidraw on the back end for you to draw out your resource requirements for how you want to construct your architecture, and then Google Cloud will implement that in code, which is amazing. And I think they use Excalidraw for that on the back end there. Anyway. Ajay, that's a great question on how to move from application support to DevOps. Next week is my Q&A week, so I recommend coming back at the same time next week. You can also ask in the Discord server right there. There's a lot of people in that community that can ask and give you opinions. You can ask them in there, or you can come back next week when I'm doing an AMA Q&A rather than this week, which is all about tooling. And Subadahip, I also say the same thing to you. I would love to talk about DevSecOps, but that's not the focus of this week's. But come back next week, because we're going to have another Q&A next week, which is sort of an AMA, Ask Me Anything approach, or go to the Discord server. Nadir, one of my favorite VS Code extensions, the dev containers and remote containers. This is a game changer. If you haven't tried the dev containers and the remote containers, this allows me to essentially use remote machines, developing in Docker, or just using remote machines in general with all of the remote tooling like it's on my machine. So it matters less and less what machine you're on, because all these tools are allowing you to use remote machines, or even WSL2, because that's technically a different machine, inside VS Code. So definitely check all those out. Most of those are official extensions. The remote tools, as well as the dev containers, they're all in this list here somewhere. All right. So there's lots of other ones in here, GitLens, stuff like that, HashiCorp. I think I might have actually, in a previous stream, I published all of my extensions, possibly in my GitHub. If you're interested in that, ping me somewhere else, and I will find it for you. I don't have it up on my screen. But I have all the usuals here, right? Like, the Kubernetes, the Dockers, the Go's, the Node.js stuff, the Python stuff, the Grammarly. This is the Grammarly one I was talking about. If you're a Grammarly person, there is a third-party person that makes it. Basically, you have to talk to Grammarly's API, and it doesn't work as easy as I'd hope. It's still the whole right-click, quick fix kind of multi-click approach. I wish it was an easier pop-up approach, but it is what it is. Kubescape is in here, by the way. There's probably a Trivy one eventually that's going to be in here because Trivy is doing so many things nowadays. We talked about Trivy last week. Anyway, Rainbow CSV is one that I added recently because it allows me to pull up CSV files inside my VS Code editor, and it makes them pretty print so that I can edit without opening up Excel. I can edit a spreadsheet by code, like search and replace and stuff like that. I can just do it in VS Code. So this is one you can look at there. I recently had to do a bunch of CSV stuff for myself and wanted to do it in VS Code rather than in Excel, which is still awesome, but it's Excel. I don't want to have to open it. Thanks for being here. Coop Simplify. I really appreciate you for being here. I appreciate the contribution, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in a few weeks. ChatGPT. I want to have some AI people on, but let me bring this up actually. So there's an event that technically is in my inbox because of spam, but I say spam. It was basically an email that I did not ask for, and it's commercial in nature. So that's, to me, considered spam. But there is, let's see if I can find it. And Kunal's going to be there and some other people. So let me bring up this email. See if I can make this make sense. So is this a link? Let me get this link. Oh, it takes me to LinkedIn. It wants me to sign up. All right. It's not what I had hoped. So there's this. Let me bring this up on screen real quick. So this email is basically a whole bunch of different companies talking about generative AI for DevOps. So I think it's a great topic. When I clicked on it, it wanted me to sign in to LinkedIn, and I might need to figure that out. But just if you're interested in this kind of stuff, maybe Google online. I don't even know what company is putting this on. I did not ask for this email. Kubaya, maybe. So Kubaya AI. So this email showed up. I don't know anything about this. So I don't know. I haven't tried it. But this is the kind of stuff that I hope to have on the show. Yeah. So I appreciate the suggestion. That's a great suggestion. And that will definitely happen this year. I don't have the actual plans yet for when that's going to happen, but it's going to happen. Because I think we're all going to be experimenting with that for years to come. And I don't expect it to be magical. I think there's going to be a lot of error-prone misinformation, and I expect it to be a little rough, but yeah. All right. Next tools. So a little bit more on some of this stuff. Git, right? I am someone who still struggles with Git commands, even though I've been using Git since I think I was using it before GitHub. I probably wasn't. I probably started using it around the time of GitHub. So for, over a decade, right? Well over a decade at this point, using Git. There are still some things that I have to create snippets, and I have to do stuff. And so some things that have helped me with Git and struggling with some of the workflows with Git, especially when you get in a larger team and you have more advanced Git workflows. A couple of things that have helped me is just using the GitHub command line. So if you didn't know about that, GitHub has a great CLI. So this right here, free to install, free to use with GitHub. Obviously, it's GitHub specific, but it allows me to do things with a little few, basically less keystrokes. I can check on GitHub Actions. I can clone a repo with less commands. I can be in a, for example, I can be, well, it kind of just shows you there on screen a little, some of the things it does. I can jump to the web page of a repo by just typing ghweb, I think is what it is. That's the only command I have to type. If I'm in the repo already and it's a GitHub repo, I just type ghweb and it will throw it up. I think they have this GH repo view to show it in the CLI. There's a lot of interesting stuff you can do there, but I also secretly use a GUI for Git, and that is Git fork. Git fork. So this is not free, and I've tried out a lot of them. Yes, VS Code has all those features and Git lens and all the other stuff, but sometimes I really just want a dedicated interface. And this is the one. I've tried Git Kraken. I've tried others, but Git fork is the only one that stuck with me. The workflow of being able to create new branches, pushing those new branches, PRing on those new branches, and then cleaning them up inside here is actually really smooth and allowing me to open up a repo from basically 2 clicks to allowing me to, it's even easier, I find in here, to add, if I just want to add these 3 files into a PR and then these 2 other files that I've changed at the same time to 2 different branches and 2 different PRs, that workflow in here is basically less clicks for me. And sometimes I just want a dedicated UI. It's almost like I like VI for editing and command line, but then I don't want to have to shift the screen to a different part of VS Code to just do the Git stuff. So rather than command line, and of course some of the command line stuff that's advanced, like a fast forward only merge attempt between 2 branches, one that's upstream, like that kind of stuff hurts my brain a little bit in Git, and I end up spending 3 or 4 minutes to make sure I have the command right before I screw it up. It's drag and drop in Git fork. So I get nothing for this, but it's just 2 developers, I think, that are full-time on it. But I've been using it for years. It's great. I don't have any stability problems on Mac. They do have a Windows version. Again, it's not free, so see if you can get your company to pay for it. It has a nice little notification screen on it. Merge conflicts are a little bit easier in it. I like where it allows me to basically choose one or the other, because sometimes I get confused about which one is incoming. And, like when you're trying to do a merge and you're looking at them on screen, it's like, wait, which one am I dealing with? And I find that their interfaces can help me reduce the confusion, because I deal with a lot of forks, right? I often fork the upstream stuff, and I'm trying to figure out what's incoming, what's going back. And anyway, interactive rebasing, a lot of their stuff is pretty sweet. So if you're someone who's into more advanced stuff with Git, granted, there's lots of tools to choose from. This one is the one that stuck. I've tried a lot of them, a lot of the free ones, and they just never really stuck with me over the Git command line in VS Code. And then this one is now the one that basically when I'm in my repo, if I'm in a repo like this one, VS Code. So if I'm in the code and I've got a file up or something, and then I have my shell up, I'll just, like you would do code dot, right, to open up code. And if you were just in a terminal editor, you could do that here. I just do fork, and then it'll bring up this little interface that looks like all the other interfaces on my computer. But I like, because I can keep tabs open for different repos. Just I'm just looking at the source code and the Git management of different repos all at once in different tabs, and I can switch back and forth. And the ability for me to see remote branches and all that stuff all in one is kind of sweet. So anyway, oh, did I mess it up? Sorry. All right. So next tool. Let's get to it. So there's fork. All right. I'm going to talk a little bit about shell stuff. Is anyone here that cares about shell stuff? Give me a thumbs up on the video if you or a thumbs up in chat if you are a shell person and you want the shell mighty shell stuff. Yeah, yeah, it does look like iTunes. Yeah, Git fork. It's I love its simplicity. I wanted to really like Git Kraken, but I was actually forcing myself to use Git Kraken and Git fork at the same time, and something about the simplicity and intuitiveness of Git fork, it just spoke to me more than Git Kraken. Which Git Kraken, there were several things that I would have to do that would require more clicks and steps than it was in Git fork. So I stuck with Git fork, and they're pretty responsive. I think I've tweeted them a couple times, questions, got immediate responses, stuff like that. So let's talk about shell. So obviously you have the shell inside of VS Code, but I'm an old school dedicated shell window person, right? Sometimes often I will have shells open up in VS Code, which is great. And I love now that you can, in VS Code, you can make the shell its own tab, so you can tab back and forth between code and the shell. But I also sometimes like a dedicated window. Sometimes I want that window just running over on the side, kind of like all hackers in every movie where there's that text scrolling. I guess they're like perpetually building, compiling C programs in the background when you're a hacker. I don't know, but that stuff's happening, and sometimes I like that. This is iTerm, but this is still my number one. I know there are other ones out there. I'm trying to remember the one that's making some waves right now. Is it Weave or Wave? Someone in the chat's going to remember. But there's another one out there. It's just so hard for me at this point because I have so much stuff invested in iTerm, and it's just so, to me, it's super fast. It uses the GPU. It's lean, and I've just gotten used to it over a decade. So you can, by the way, you can support the guy who builds this. You can support him on Patreon, which I do. I give him a couple dollars a month because I have this tool open always, and it's one person developing it, constant feedback, new stuff. In fact, it now has, they are also experimenting with AI. Thank you. I have tea delivery. So let's see, they have somewhere in here, I mean, there's so many advanced features in here. I don't even know how I would even demo all this stuff. But there are pop-up things. There's now password managers and all sorts of other stuff. It has a lot of stuff it ties into other programs. Why can't I find the AI stuff? It's got a shell integration so that it will actually know. You can even install it remotely, so it knows things that are happening in the background. It can manage processes and stuff like that. But one of the things, besides just all the typical tab stuff, where you can have all the tabs and all that stuff here, right? One of the things I still stick with is that it's got different profiles. And so one of the profiles, if you're someone who's played games for 20 years, do you remember the Doom screen, the Doom pull down? So you would hit tilde or control tilde, and you would pull down in Doom, the old first-person shooter, still around. It would pull down this console that would allow you to run commands, cheat codes, all that stuff in Doom. Well, it has that in iTerm, and it's fantastic. It doesn't look great on a demo. Let me see if I can actually get it to work. See if this will work. Show the full window. Okay, so this is like the Doom pull down, right? And when you Alt Tab or Command Tab or whatever away from it, it goes away. So I can then basically execute it with a hotkey. It comes back, and then when I go back to it, so that's very Doom-like, right? It also has the ability to put windows in you can put a window in the corner and have it always up front, so that if you have something running in the background, or like maybe you're developing and you're running NodeMon or something where you're constantly rebuilding files and you want that always in the front, you can have a profile for that, and I will do that and have it really tiny print. And so that it's just always there, so I can always see if there's maybe an error, like if I've coded something wrong and I've saved it and it's crashing on a crash loop kind of thing. I can see that in the corner. It does all that stuff, but they have implemented ChatGPT as a beta feature, and I'm sitting here thinking I don't remember the hotkey for toggling it, and I don't see it, and it's not that amazing yet, so it's not even really worth a demo. But basically, what it's doing is it allows you to type in a command, and it will fill the command for you. But it has to go to the API and back, so it already adds seconds to your typing. And I am in. Let me just bring up iTerm again so I can show you on screen. Shouldn't have closed that one. So I am very much I like auto predict and stuff like that. So if you'll see, let me see if I can zoom in. So if you see when I do this, this is all stuff a part of Oh My ZSH. So I know Eric has been saying I've been using Oh My Posh until recently when it started acting very odd. So Oh My Posh, I guess an homage to Oh My ZSH. So on Mac, ZSH is now the default shell. And so I use that. I have not converted to Fish. I know there's a lot of Fish fans out there. I've been using ZSH for probably close to a decade, and then finally it became a default. And I've been using Oh My ZSH for that in almost entire time. And so that's nothing new. In fact, what I'm going to show you over on here is I have a whole page of a lot of these tools I'm going to be talking about real quick. And I'm going to go through them fairly rapidly. And if you have questions, throw them in chat. So I try to keep this up to date as possible. Warp Terminal, yes, Alexei. Warp Terminal was the other one I was considering. People are saying it's pretty cool. To me, I try these tools, and then there's one thing they don't do right. It usually has something to do with displaying things like Vim or some advanced, K9S or some sort of advanced incursors type thing, and they won't work right, and then I'll just leave them forever. I have a problem with trying a shell replacement for iTerm. iTerm has so many years of investment in it. It's a natively built app for Mac. It's only Mac, unfortunately. So maybe if you're on Windows, I love Windows Terminal on Windows. So if you're a Windows person, you should be using Windows Terminal. And I haven't tried heavily cross-platform with Mosh. All right. So if you look at these, Eternal Terminal to replace Mosh. So if you're someone who knows about remoting into servers, which I don't have to do a ton anymore, because again, we're all moving towards cloud managed infrastructure so that we don't have to manage it. But if I need to SSH, I used to do that a lot more when traveling, and I would spend time on servers and I would be developing on servers, and I would hate how SSH would hang or would kick me out because of intermittent Wi-Fi. So there's a thing called Mosh, right? And Mosh is great. In fact, it's built into one of my picks, which I will show you for Apple devices on iOS. So if you haven't tried Blink Shell, it's absolutely the best shell tool, and in some ways it can actually be an editing tool on iOS, and it's just called Blink Shell, and that, I don't know why it's not coming up right away. Blink Shell. There we go. So it's a great tool. You don't get everything for free. I'm trying to remember. It's got certain free features and then features you have to pay for. I can't remember exactly what you have to pay for, but it's worth paying for. I think if you're someone who's if you're on an iPad and you're wanting to develop or you need to manage servers, use Blink. What does Blink have to do with Mosh? Well, Mosh is the way that you use UDP for your SSH. However, to finish that thought, Mosh is built into Blink. So if you're on Blink on an iPad and you're using Mosh to your servers, you can just bring it right back up. If iOS has a tendency to close apps because of memory utilization when you're swapping between apps, Mosh handles that. Well, I have replaced Mosh in my own workflows with Eternal Terminal, which one of the negatives of Mosh is that it doesn't have scrollback. So you often will have to use Mosh inside of tmux, and it gets pretty complicated if you want to have native scrollback with your mouse or whatever. Well, Eternal Terminal is essentially Mosh plus other stuff, and it allows more features. The utility is ET, I think, at the command line. So if I just type Yeah. So it's just ET in my command line. And so like if I want to jump into a server like that, I could just type that. And then of course you're not seeing it, but on my screen, which we'll talk about, 1Password is prompting me for SSH key access. 1Password, by the way, is my favorite password manager, including dev teams, because it has Kubernetes support, SSH key support. It's like the primo best stuff. And so I use both for personal and business. I use 1Password and have for years, and it's managing my SSH keys. But now I'm on a Linux server, and if I were to disconnect my internet and then reconnect it, I would not lose connection. It would just automatically show back up because it's running over UDP. Anyway, so that's that. Yeah, James is saying using that for when you're commuting. Yeah, when you need to shut your laptop and go somewhere else and then open it back up, you've got to be using Mosh or Eternal Terminal. Like that is the way you operate because it's so much more convenient for SSH because quite frankly, a lot of terminals don't handle SSH disconnects well. So when you come back from sleep, a lot of times the whole terminal it'll just have to wait for a timeout, which can sometimes be 5-10 minutes. It just depends on the SSH setup and your terminal setup. By the way, let's look at some more stuff there in that list. So EXA. So this was actually talked about. If you know anything, David over at Code. Let's see if I can pull this up. I think I have a link. Yeah. So David Flanagan, Raw Code, also a channel on YouTube. You should definitely check it out. Great stuff. He's making great content. He was talking about Zoxide, which Zoxide. I don't even know how to say it properly, but Zoxide or Zoside. Anyway, I'm going to say Zoxide. So he demos that, and I don't actually use it. I use a different tool, which I'm going to talk about in a second. But this is actually a really cool demo. So you could go check this out. I'm going to put this link up in chat, so you can go check out that little video of his. But essentially, it's a command line navigation helper, a directory assister. And there are tons of these tools. I use one. Let's see. I think it's called AutoJump. Yes. So this is the one I use, AutoJump. Not Zoxide, but and actually maybe I'm confusing a little bit about the purposes of each. But what AutoJump does is it allows you, and I'll just show it, it allows you to jump around quickly. So it predicts my paths based on previous use. So I can just type Udemy, and it will jump, and if you just see that full path, it'll jump to a directory that has the word Udemy in it. And it's using that based on simple heuristics of what's the one I use last, what's the one I use the most often. If I had two repos or two directories with the name Udemy in it, I could just simply type it again. And I guess it went back to my home directory, so I don't know why I would do that. But if I said let's see, examples. So no, maybe it's example. There we go. So that directory, let me show you that again. That directory is this directory, but I have multiple forks and places for this. So if I just type that same command again, example, it will go then to the next one, which is not that one. So I will try it again. And let's see if it goes to that one. Nope. That's on Docker samples. It's failing me. So here's another example directory. Anyway, doesn't always work right. So maybe that's why I need to look at this one that David pointed out. So I haven't tried this. I don't know if anyone's using any of these tools, but it's a great thread to read through because people are talking about what tool they use. EXA is one that I use, which I'm going to talk about EXA in a second. Sorry, I should bring up this window. EXA is a little bit different, but what I would classify this tool that David's showing off and the tool that I just showed you, AutoJump, I would call those path navigation tools. So if you're someone who's got dozens and dozens of repos and you're working in multiple teams and you've got too much stuff, you've got to have one of these tools because who wants to be typing those paths all day long? In addition to that, if you're using OhmyZSH, then look up some of look up some of the Oh My ZSH, like the autocomplete. There's a couple of features built in that will help you pre-fill your commands. That's what you saw me do a while ago. So when I type in like docker build, you can see that it's filling in things, right? And that's just using simple previous commands. And this is a ZSH thing fed by autocomplete and a couple other utilities inside of your Oh My ZSH config. So look that stuff up. Those things exist. I find it much easier. I try to now turn them off, ironically, when I'm using demo modes. So I have a demo mode. In fact, if I'm in a tab, and let's say I've jumped into, so this is something that those of you that present, like James, you should be doing. So you see how you can tell on my screen, by the way, this is Starship. This prompt is Starship, which if you don't know about, I can just show you. This is Starship. Just look up Starship shell. And this is not a shell, but a prompt maker. So instead of me using the built-in Oh My ZSH stuff, I now use Starship, which I think a lot of people are using. It actually got some funding recently, which is pretty exciting to add more functionality. But it does a lot of things around your prompt. So if in mine, for example, it shows me what branch I'm on. It shows me whether I have uncommitted changes in my Git branch. It knows if I'm in Node.js by the package.js, it'll know that, and it'll show me the Node.js version. It'll show me the Python version of my current directory of the package I'm using for the requirements file. It's really slick. And you can customize all this in Starship. So in addition to Oh My ZSH and Starship, one of the other things that I'm doing in here is I have a demo mode. So I can do present. So if you've ever seen me in a demo where it's showing the whale, and then if I type something wrong, it shows me like a fire or whatever. This is my presentation mode. And the way I do this is, I think it's an alias. Maybe it's not. I think this is an Oh My ZSH script that I wrote. So it's just a ZSH script. And what it's doing is it's customizing my prompt. Now it's customizing it with Starship. And it customizes it so you only see the current directory and nothing else. Because what I've learned in demos is, like I said at the beginning of this conversation, I'm always enamored by people's screen. Like, what are they running? What is in their menu bar? All that stuff. So I get distracted by that. So I've noticed in my courses that I get tons of questions if I ever show something that, like a tab completion or an autocomplete. People always want me to set that up for them in my Docker course or in my Kubernetes course. And the problem is that's not the point of those courses. The other problem with that is that those things break constantly. Like, these are things where the next version of something, or if you changed one utility, it's going to break your workflow. And so it's really hard for me to help someone on a random OS with a random setup configure their shell autocomplete, for example. It's completely different per setup. So I've learned to disable all that. And if you go over to my little shell here, if you're just now joining, by the way, I put the link up in chat, brettfisher.com/shell. One of the things I have here is right here, my custom ZSH prompt with a presentation mode. So essentially, I can type present, and it will dumb down everything. It turns off autocomplete. It dumbs down the shell prompt so that I can then instantly present something at a talk, at a conference, on a YouTube stream, and not have people distracted by all the other whiz-bang stuff going on in my shell. Okay? So if you're someone who presents, there's probably other tools that do this better, but I made a little script there, and you can just click on that. It'll show you how to do it in ZSH, essentially. All right. The other little tool I want to show you on the command line here is Exa. So Exa, which was mentioned in David Flanagan's tweet by someone else. Where'd it go? Now I got to find it. Too many tabs. I'm just going to do this. All right, so this repo, here it is right here. This repo is Exa. So Exa it's kind of weird. Honestly, when I first saw this, I was like, I'm replacing the ls and ll commands in my machine. That's weird. Like those are built-in shell commands with my shell. Why do I want to have a separate program run it? Well, there's now, if you just kind of look through some of these demos, there are lots of good reasons to do this. And one of them is, let me just show in this like ls-al. Let me do that. Okay, so this is what I get back from a standard shell when you're doing an ls command, right? But if I use exa and then I alias it to something like ll, which, like Ubuntu comes out of the box with an ll alias that basically just is an ls plus like al, maybe h. I'm not sure what all the options are in it. But if I do it with exa, of course I can't do it there because I disabled it. If I do it here, well, that's a bad example. Let me do Ubuntu Udemy. All right, so if I do an ll there, it's going to do a lot of things for me. And I'm kind of dumbing it down because in my setup, I didn't want all the colors. But, oh, it's not exa. What is it called? I'm trying to remember what the command is actually. Did I break it in mine? Maybe I need to open up a new terminal. Oh, you know what? I have to turn off. I have to turn off my presentation. Okay, I think I broke it. So trust me when I say that exa will give you. Let me see if I can show you some of this in full screen. Maybe zoom in on these images. I think I broke my shell script. I changed my script the other week, and I probably broke something. All right, so this is what it's going to look like. All the colors. You're going to have headings. I don't know if you can really see that. Let me just keep zooming in. You're going to have headings in there. You can optionally have file type icons in there. And basically, it allows you to just replace a lot of the functionality or supersede a lot of the functionality you get with ls and the ls variants. And because I think it's built in Rust or Go, it's native speed. I haven't noticed anything slowed down in it. So go check this out. It's called exa. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. EXA. And I do remember that, James. Ashish, sorry if I mispronounced that. I see your questions on DevOps, interview tips, all that stuff. Come back next week. So I do a Q&A and Ask Me Anything live now twice a month. This is not that week. That's next week. So come back for that, and I'm happy to answer you. Or you can join the Discord server there and ask there because people have a lot of opinions there. Yeah, sorry if I'm missing some of the chat. If I've missed your question, if you have any questions, do I use get aliases? Dan's asking. I used to, but now that I've found that I'm using the Git fork GUI and of course the VS Code GUIs like GitLens inside of VS Code, I don't tend to use those. I used to. What I used to do is I used to forget the aliases that I had for Git. So I forget for space Git. I would forget my aliases for Git. And the problem with that, so what I would end up doing is using Notion and creating my own little snippets and explaining what the command does. And I still have it, explaining what this long command does. Caret head, all this stuff, right? And I stopped using that a lot when I started finding a way to use it in the Git GUI with Git fork. So that's sort of a testament to their GUI making it so simple that I just don't need to do those advanced commands anymore. But I suspect, Dan, if I was in a very large, like if I was working with 10 or 20 developers on the same set of repos every day, which I don't do that a lot of anymore, if I was, I would probably still be using Git aliases. So that's a great topic, Dan. Dev containers. Yeah, so there's dev containers in VS Code. I use those a lot, especially when I'm developing remotely. With code, whenever I'm remote, I don't always develop in a container. Depends on the language, depends on what I'm doing, especially if that language doesn't have its own Docker file or that repo doesn't have its own Docker file. But code spaces, by default, they don't really develop in a container. You're kind of developing on the host a little bit. But I find dev containers to work great when it's already set up. And I love that people would maybe put those in their repo, and then that just makes it so much easier to develop in the containers. I worked with DevOps teams that do this a lot. They will use dev containers to control the tooling versions that they use in their DevOps. So if you're on Terraform blah and Ansible blah, and you're on your particular infrastructure uses Kubernetes 1.18, so you don't want to use the 125 that's maybe on your local system. They put all that in dev containers, and you now have a DevOps container. And I've seen teams do that because they end up all using VS Code and using the dev container standard. I'm looking forward to the future of that because it's looking like it's trying to become a thing more than just VS Code. So that's actually a pretty cool idea. Hello, Alexa. It's good to see you. Coming back. All right. I mentioned 1Password. I'm not going to demo 1Password, but 1Password, if you're not using it for your password, you're missing out. For example, 1Password supports now storage of SSH keys and generation of those keys, which has caused me to make more SSH keys because it's easier to do. I used to have to write a script. I had a little script that would make me a new key the way I like it, with the right length and the right hashing algorithm or whatever. And now I can do all that in the 1Password GUI. It's not a separate step for me to store them somewhere, because I always get nervous about backing up my SSH keys somewhere else. So I'd rather them just be in 1Password with the rest of my passwords. And so they have that support now. That's fantastic. The thing that they also recently did was they added a feature. So if you do single sign-on, what it'll do is when you log into that website with single sign-on, it will still save it, and it'll save it as a preference. So it doesn't save the username and password, obviously, but it recognizes that you used SSO, and it'll say, hey, did you just use Google to sign into Bitbucket? Because if you did, I'm going to save that preference so that next time you go to Bitbucket, you're not confused and you use a different SSO. How many of us have all been to those websites where you let's see, you go to the website and they present you 4 different ways to log in: Twitter, Facebook, GitHub, Microsoft, and you're like, I don't remember which one I used. And then, like I did recently, I clicked the wrong one and it says, we don't have an account for you. I've also experienced it where it sets up an entirely new account, which is a bug. That's a bug in a website. They shouldn't do that. So 1Password, as of like a month or two ago, now stores those preferences and will let you know when you go to sign in with SSO. It'll sort of show up and say, hey, you used the Google login and you used this particular login, but it's not resaving the password over and over and over again, which is really slick. I think they're the only ones I don't know that anyone else does that, but they do that now too. And they have a Kubernetes operator. If you want to start using 1Password for API storage or to store secrets for your actual infrastructure, they're into that. They also have a great security podcast at 1Password. If you're into podcasts and you like security stuff, theirs is pretty entertaining. They talk about how they develop their app. They talk about the latest security headlines. It's a good podcast, so check it out. Can you display the current kube control context in the bash prompt? Absolutely. In fact, if you go into Starship, they have all this stuff in the configuration language, and so all their docs. And if you scroll through here, there's Docker, there's Cloud. So you can tell it can tell you right now which AWS context, which Kubernetes cluster, and which Docker context you're on, all in the same line. What I tend to do, though, is I tend to turn a lot of that off. And so what I haven't figured out is how to quickly change what I want my config to be, because I probably don't want that stuff there all day, every day. Like if I'm not currently using Docker and Kubernetes and AWS, I don't want that stuff showing up. But then there are times when I'm doing the DevOps stuff. And so if someone knows, there's probably something in here that tells me how to quick switch my setup, because I want my setup to not be directory aware. I want it to sort of be aware of my current surroundings and my current, what am I currently doing? Am I working on a lot of times I'm just writing in Markdown and I'm using VS Code as my Markdown editor. I don't want to see all that stuff in my shell, But yeah, if you look in here, there's Vagrant, there's Terraform, there's a crap ton of stuff. Pulumi is in there, Python. It's just, yeah, Kubernetes and all this stuff in the background. Of course, each thing you add adds a fraction of a second, but I've never noticed this thing slow down. It even has Helm stuff, which I've not used, but pretty cool. And you can build your own configs in there. Let me see if I do Starship. Yeah, so this is just sorry, this is going to be an ugly light theme in my Vim, but this is the TOML file that you manage for Starship. Mine's pretty simple, but I've disabled, like, I didn't want to know the Python versions because I'm usually using Python or building Python apps. I'm not usually developing in Python. So I just didn't really care about what Python version I was using. So I would disable that. But I did want to know, I disabled the Node.js because also the same problem was I didn't really care about the Node.js version at the time. And then I disabled the Kubernetes. But then the only thing I know how to do is I just will edit it, uncomment this, and then it will show me that. The same thing for Docker. I also have a battery display. So once my battery goes below 75%, every shell prompt will show me the battery left. The battery amount in my shell, and it has like a green and a red and yellow and all that. It's pretty cool. And then so mine's a pretty simple one. There's probably lots of examples of Starships out there, but yeah, check that out. All right. So back to the shell stuff. I think we're kind of wrapping that up. Let me go back to my sweet shell. So if I haven't mentioned all this other stuff, it's been there for a while. It's not incredibly new. I am interested in more of this, the chatbot approach. So iTerm is doing this where basically a key combo. Let me see if I can find it real quick. iTerm. Look at all these people already talking about it. All this chat GPT stuff for shells and stuff. There is a beta feature essentially for iTerm that it will send it off to the chat GPT and it'll try to complete the command for you. It's too slow for my taste. We're going to need a much faster responsive API. It needs to be nearly instant because the autocomplete stuff I have today is based on my previous commands. Kind of like, if you search through commands in Bash with Command R, if you've ever done that, you can search through previous commands. Well, the ZSH autocomplete does that essentially for me. So the ChatGPT stuff is going to need to be, it's maybe better for things that I would love to be able to type what I want in the shell. Like, please find me all files using find with this extension. And, I would love to be able to describe that at the command line. And then I get back, without ever having to go to Stack Overflow, I get back the response of what that find plus grep plus sed command might be, right? Like that would be pretty cool. And that's what I think iTerm is experimenting with. I also think Warp might be experimenting with it, or a couple of the other ones. So that's probably in our future, is typing things that you wish you could do at the command line, and then it just tells you what the command is without you having to Google and go to Stack Overflow. Anyway. Bat is maybe the only other one that I would mention there because not everybody knows about it. So if you want, you know how cat, you can cat a file. Well, there's Bat, B-A-T instead of C-A-T. And the difference is Bat will pretty print. Let's see where this is at. Bat. So this is a repo that pretty prints and gives you line numbers instead of cat. So I use Bat almost, I would say I don't use cat much if I'm looking at if I want to look at the file on screen. If I'm trying to send something somewhere else and I'm catting something to pipe it to another command, don't use Bat because it'll mess it up. I'm not sure if it will actually even work. But you can see here that it's adding the file name, it's adding the file lines, and it almost looks like an editor, but it's not. It's simply pretty printing out the file. And it has themes, so you can change the themes and colors of things like that. It also has, I didn't know this, Git integration, so it will recognize the lines that are changed, and you can just do all that with a simple command to command line. So check out Bat. Yeah, and Eric's mentioning Bat is great for presentations. So I didn't think about that, but that's a great example of using it. It's another one of those tools that I would use more in my courses, but I'm also afraid that people would want me to explain how to set that up. So I've learned, at least in courses, that if you didn't explain how the tool works, you probably shouldn't demo it during your course. But there's a ton of tools there. Go check them out. Silver Searcher AG has been my code search tool forever. I don't know of a better one. Someone might know in there, but Silver Searcher is available it's available in apt, it's available in brew. It's probably available somewhere in Windows with WinGit or whatever. And that is the way I search from the command line through code. And yeah, if you're into Vim, you need to use, let me see if I can find the Vim, my Vim section. Oh, right there it is, right there. Plugin Manager, Space Vim. I've used Space Vim plus NeoVim for years. So if you're still an editor at the command line, personally, I use VS Code for most things, but I still love a good command line editor. Space Vim is my plugin manager for Vim. I use NeoVim as the fork of Vim. It's faster. It has more things in it. You can even do shells inside NeoVim, so you're like, it's almost Inception at that point. But Space Vim is a great third-party plugin manager that basically all you have to do is install Space Vim and NeoVim, or just regular Vim, on a machine, and then it looks beautiful. It has all the functionality. It has the file menu. It has all that stuff built in. It has advanced font support and all that stuff. I've used Space Vim for I don't know how long, and that's great. It supports nerd fonts for fancy programming fonts. If you're someone who's into that, you probably already know about new nerd fonts, because the first time you search for programming fonts, you will probably find out about nerd fonts. But there's a whole bunch of other stuff there. I don't want to go through it all because I have entire shows, if you go back in this channel, entire shows on that. So I'm going to keep going. The next one is not a DevOps tool, but I want to talk about it. It is Notion. I don't think I'm signed in on here. So, and I don't even think they give out, I need to go to like their homepage. Yeah, let's see if I can actually, there we go. So Notion, I mean, probably most people here have either tried it, have heard about it. It is my digital brain. I left Evernote 6 years ago, 7 years ago, possibly. I think we really switched everything in my company to Notion about 4 years ago at least. And I live in it. Everything is in there. It is my digital brain. And it manages everything from, we have all of our standard operating procedures, our walkthroughs. It is a universal sort of, it's like Excel plus Word plus Microsoft Access databases all in one app. And I don't do anything particularly DevOps-y in it. In other words, I don't have custom templates. If you're a Notion person, you know about templates. You can share templates. I'm excited because they recently just bought a company, which is my favorite calendar, called Cron. Cron Calendar. So it just won Best Calendar App of the Year because they're now on iOS. I don't know if they're on Android yet. They have a Mac dedicated app, and they only currently support Google calendars, but Microsoft and every other calendar ecosystem is coming. I love their app. I'm moving to a time management based task workflow, so that if it's not on my calendar, I don't do it. Basically, I'm struggling with that because I used to be a to-do list person, but I'm just not great at getting things done. So I'm trying to work on that. This Cron is helping me along with Notion. If you sort of look in some of their stuff, I find that Notion has a lot of the things that we need in DevOps because you often need to track things. It knows about GitHub. So when I throw in GitHub links, it automatically shows me previews of that repo in an intelligent way. I can link to PRs in it, and it knows what a PR is, and it recognizes that. I can throw in code snippets, and it knows the different formatting, and it'll format the snippets correctly. It supports Markdown, which if you're in tech, you probably know about Markdown. And so it has everything I need out of an editor. It even has Gantt charts now. It's getting all grown up and businessy. But the things that I'm experimenting in 2023 with is I'm on the beta for the AI. So what I'm going to ask for you is, if you're still watching, to if you're wanting to check out Notion, it is free. There's a lot of free features that you don't have to pay for. And what I want to do is I need to find... I'm going to share with you my Notion key. I have a shared key. Let's see. See if I can find it. And anyway, let me go over here and show you. So if you go to their website, they have an AI preview. All right, and then you can join the wait list. All right, so for me, I need to sign in. Let's see. Yes, sign in with my password. That's one password in action there. All right, so when I do that, it gives me a link. I have looked at Coda, Christy. I think the difference between this and Coda is that how your mind works. I have tried lots of apps like Coda that are a little, and what am I going to say about it? It doesn't work the way my brain works. Notion works for me. It works the way my brain works. Unlike a lot of these advanced workflow tools, they're very specific to you, and you have to set up your own workflow. There's a huge Notion ecosystem that did not exist when I first started. There are now entire Notion courses. There are tons of people that are giving and selling Notion templates and things to get started. My Notion use is not particularly advanced, but now that we have the API, I am definitely wanting 2023 to be the year of me doing Notion AI. So this is what I'm asking, is if you're in Notion at all, I just put a link in chat. And that link is to help get you on the list if you're into Notion or you want to try it out, to get on the list for the Notion AI, generative AI beta or alpha. And I'm asking you to help me bump myself up in the line so I can test it for you. I'm currently 150,000 in line, so that is not great. But if you already have a Notion account and you simply click on that, you will get yourself in the wait list, and you'll help bump me up in the wait list as well. I'm just admitting it. I really want to try it out, and I don't want to wait for however, 150 people. I think I was at like 400,000 people at some point. So now I'm a little bit higher up in the line. But I really want to try out the generative AI without having to go to ChatGPT's website, which is constantly under high load, and I can never use it, and it's unreliable. So I think this is the 2023 is the year of me trying out the API and trying to change things in it with the API. I think Notion is now in Zapier, which I'm a big Zap fan. So I'm going to be trying out how to automate some of the things in there that I'm used to trying out with things like Google Forms, Google Sheets, some of the automation stuff I would do, whether it's tracking my own weight or tracking the status of things. Along this lines of project stuff, I'm also trying out avoiding Google search. This is me on Google search, right? Looking for myself. I think this is my search performance because it knows I'm logged in with that account. But I knew I had a tab open. So this is my default page on Neva search. So Neva is a ad-free search system. I think I can invite friends. Invite a friend. Maybe I don't know if we get stuff, but I am trying this out because it has some features, and we've all seen this before. So that's my Neva sign-up code. Christy's in line at 1.5 million. Yeah, so there are a lot of people in Notion. Notion has blown up, and I don't know. I look at all these advanced systems and I get bogged down in it. But if you want to just see, let me see if I can bring up something that like what my day looks like in Notion. Do I have it open? Yeah. Yeah, it's nothing fancy. I mean, like this is me on this show, right? Like this 200th show. So this is see if I can get this on screen. So this is just a simple page of me just typing in all the notes, and this is the kind of thing that I wouldn't share publicly, but it would turn into something. But if I throw in a GitHub PR, let me see if I can find is there any PRs in here? Yeah, so this PR, if I throw that in, you can see that it's actually kind of smart. It's got a little bit of goodness in there, if you can see that or not. But it basically can embed almost every single type of block or data. It has built-in databases, built-in database tables. But when you go through, you can see like, Figma, Google Maps, Google Drive files, tweets. If I throw in a tweet, it actually puts the tweet in there, the tweet card that we all see and it's normal. But they have a ton more like Loom, Sketch, Escaladraw, Mermaid. If you're a fan of the Mermaid format for stuff, it has that. Whimsical. I know I work with Whimsical on a couple of teams. It's just on and on and on and on. Tons and tons and tons of integrations. And it just makes it a rich place to do all the things. You can see by all these areas, my whole personal life and business life is in there. I just have tons of stuff. Everything from notes on the video games I'm playing to the commands that I need to know for particular setups to walking through how to build my current demos for current stuff. It's all in there. So I recommend, if you haven't tried Notion, if you're still on Evernote or OneNote or some of these older platforms, Google Notes, stuff like that, I definitely recommend you try something like that out instead, because they've evolved and they've grown up, and it's pretty great. All right, let me check up on the chat here real quick. All right, we're going to do giveaways before everybody gets away from this 2-hour stream. So I'm going to ask a couple of trivia questions, and you get a $50 coupon to $50 gift certificate to my merch store if you get the right question. And you're the first one that shows up in my chat. Any new episodes coming up? Let me just check on the old chat real quick. Any new stuff on WebAssembly? I'm waiting for some major things to happen in WebAssembly. Nothing that I'm aware of has changed really since December. So in December, if you go back in this channel, there's a WebAssembly video I did with Nigel Poulton, and nothing has really changed yet. So what we're waiting on is some more stuff to happen in the Kubernetes space, and for the Docker stuff to mature. That's probably going to take another 6 months or so. Like, we're going to need some time for the industry, all the companies to work all that out. So if you know something new, let me know. But I haven't seen anything that's worth a new video. Let's see. I never use Mac OS, but I've seen people use pbcopy, which wishes somebody would port it to Linux as well. pbcopy is a Mac-only tool that allows you to essentially send something straight to the clipboard, regardless of the file type. It's actually pretty cool. But yeah, it's a Mac-only built-in thing. James is on the AI preview. It says, you're not missing much. I mean, that's the thing is I'm on Nema. So, by the way, let me just show that Nema real quick. Sorry, we're gonna finish this up, and just want to finish my thought on this for you. So, Neva, if you want to sign up for that, you can do it free. I am experimenting with the paid plan. It's like $3 a month or something, $4 a month. I'm not sure what it is, but you can see it's showing my calendar. It's showing my GitHub pull request that I'm probably assigned to. and then it's showing packages that are being delivered or in transit, as well as news that I've told it I like this kind of news. So it's almost like a homepage plus search, right? So if I just search on myself, I feel like the search is slightly slower than Google, but they are a startup, so I'm forgiving them for that. They have the AI generative answers here, so it's basically letting you avoid ChatGPT for now. They are about as reliable as ChatGPT. The answers are often wrong. This is actually the most correct I've ever seen my own bio, which there is no bio, but I think it's just pulling it. Yeah, it's pulling it from GitHub, Docker, LinkedIn, and Udemy, which is smart. When you do it with this to me means it probably has access to the internet. ChatGPT does not, and ChatGPT, if you've ever tried to type in yourself, you usually have to type something like your name plus your topic. Like for me, I'd have to type in Bret Fisher Docker. Half of it's wrong. It's completely fabricated, made up stuff. I'm not a book author. It said I'm multiple bestseller book authors. Never happened. I'm not that person. And I don't believe there's another Bret Fisher that's confusing me with that, because I know that there's other Bret Fishers on the internet because I see them on Google search, and they are not book authors. I think one of them's a dentist. So anyway, I'm trying out Neva. I'm excited about it because we've all seen this before in other experiments that have years gone by, but I'm giving it some access to certain things, my inbox, my Slack, my GitHub, and my Notion. I'm not giving it access to completely everything, just I'm letting it have access to a little bit because I'm a little nervous about them scanning and indexing. But they index all that in the background and allow my search results to have that data. I've seen that with other plugins that you can have in your browser, like Evernote's had one like that for years, but it's kind of a browser plugin hack. It only works in that browser with that plugin. It's sort of shimming it in an iframe of Google search, which doesn't really work. So they're experimenting with a lot of things. I don't know how it's all going to work out, but you can see they have a bunch of other apps that you can plug into. I am very nervous about that, but at least I know the team behind it is not just two guys in a loft in San Francisco. It seems like legitimate, the proper kind of company internals and stuff that would make me feel a little bit trustworthy with some of this data. I'm not going to let them scan my 1Password. That would not be a thing. Anyway, okay, so let's do some drawing. So the first question, okay, so this is how it's going to work. You're going to answer a trivia question, and these are actually not going to be Docker and Kubernetes trivia questions. They're maybe a little bit more about me, because it's my 200th episode, so I thought I would do that. Okay, the first person to show up on my list, which doesn't necessarily guarantee that it's the first person that you're going to see in your chat, because the chat comes in async, so it's just going to be the one that I see on screen. And so the first question is going to be, I have a mascot that you've seen around. It's a she, and she is an animal. What's her name? What do I call her? If you put that in chat, you can get a $50. If you're the first one in chat to put it in, you can get a $50 gift certificate to my merch store. All right, let's see who got it first the first time. Who got it right? All right. It looks like Eric was the first one to show up. Foxy. That's a little bit of an insider one. So congratulations. Congratulations to Eric. Eric, who is also a member and big supporter of my work. So I really am grateful and glad you got that one. You'll pass on the gift certificate. All right, then it's Martin is the next one up, who just gifted a whole bunch of subscriptions to people. So it's very appropriate. Foxy. Yeah, it's pretty simple. All right. All right. This one is, these are just about me, so I feel it's kind of lame. In what DockerCon did the Docker captains first get established? I will take either the city it was in or the year of the DockerCon. It was when the Docker Captain program was first established, which is I attribute the Docker Captain program to a lot of my success in this community in the Docker world. Is that they gave me the platform and the prominence, I guess, to make my course and to be successful with it. So 2012, Paul is very optimistic. 2012. No, it was not 2012. Docker was actually invented in 2013. Thank you for trying, Paul. Alexander says London. No. And San Francisco. Good guess on San Francisco, Conrad. But no, it was not San Francisco. It was not 2014. It was not 2015. Ooh, Eric is right on the location. It was in Seattle. So then, and so the question is, if it was in Seattle, what year was DockerCon in Seattle? It was not 2014. It was not 2013. It was not 2015. So what year might it have been? 2016. Sudarshan, sorry if I mispronounced that a little bit. You are correct, 2016. So, Eric, are you passing on the award again, even though you were the first one? I'll let Eric, who was the correct one up front, either. So, Seattle 2016 was the first year that they established the Docker Captain program. It previously was known as the Docker Blogging and Docker speaking programs. They merged them together. So if you were speaking, running meetups, doing all the things, they merged them into one mega group. And if you were doing many things, they made you a captain. If you were just running like a meetup, you were called a community leader, a Docker community leader. And ever since then, that's kind of what the Docker captains have been. It's a voluntary, Docker picks them internally. It's a you don't get paid for it. It's not, in fact, if you become an employee, you lose your captainship. And it just basically means you're trying to spread the word about containers, specifically Docker, everywhere you can. Yes. All right. So the winners are Ansecue. I'm still gonna call it that. Martin on the let's see, where was the correct answer there up there when I was scrolling? So Foxy, that was the first one, and then and that's fine. The 2016. Sudarshan, congratulations. You are the winner. All right. So how this is going to work is both of you just need to either reach out to me on DevOps Fan or on Twitter. You can find my email out there, Bret at bretfisher.com, whatever. Find me and I will send you those codes. And then you'll get basically $50 to my loot box, what I'm calling it, the loot box. And there is a sale going on right now. So maybe you, with shipping, you can get two things. I'm not sure. But there are t-shirts, there are mugs, there are sweatshirts. There's some other things there. I don't think we have socks yet. I would love to have sneakernet socks for the actual sneakers, like socks with sneakers on them. But I don't think they make socks yet, so we don't have anything for socks. But I will be wearing these in Florida when I speak in 2 weeks at CIVO. So any of you that are going to be at the CIVO conference, I look forward to seeing you there. Eric was like, I wasn't sure. You are so welcome, and congratulations again to those winners. Just make sure you reach out to me on some other platform. The coupons are not going away, so you got time. It's not a race, but you do have, if you want to get in on that sale, which will get you more for your money, that sale is only going to go till the 30th. So try to do it this week or this weekend. Reach out to me somewhere else where we can have a private DM. All right, so I am at almost 2 hours in. So let's go back to the list real quick. And I'm just going to throw this list up on screen. Let's have people call out what they're interested in me showing off. Let's see. Because I don't have the time, I think, to go through all these things. Let's see if we can zoom in. And like that. 5 more memberships. What? Wow, thank you so much for your gifts. I mean, everybody who's getting a gift membership, that's pretty awesome. That's really cool. And a lot of you, Nadir, these are all regulars that are getting the gift. So if you're just now getting membership or you're getting a gift membership, make sure you link your Discord to YouTube. And that's how in this server, you're going to get access to special channels. We have channels just for the different membership programs in Discord. And the way you have to get in there is by linking your YouTube account to Discord. And you do that here in YouTube. So I think the membership program for you will probably tell you something about that. But if not, of course, you can find me in Discord. Let me know, and I can help walk you through it. We're now also, by the way, selling memberships on my own website. So when you get the newsletter, you can then optionally sign up to support all this content, all these guests that we're going to have over this year. A ton of guests are getting scheduled. And let's go through the list and make sure we didn't leave anything out. So these are all the DevOps and engineering tools that I was thinking about. If you're also on iPad or iPhone and you want to do development, I like Working Copy. That is a tool for iOS that I think it's great because it allows me to edit. It has context editing, coloring of my programming languages, but also more importantly, allows me to pull code down through Git and push it back up on the GitHub, right? So I can pull stuff down, make PRs, write code. It doesn't allow me to run a server, but it does allow you ways to run. It's got a neat, interesting way of getting around the limitation of running servers on your iOS device. So check it out. It does have paid features, but I do believe some of them are free. I'm not exactly sure on that. Let's see. My favorite SSH shell on iPhone, iPad is Blink. So look up Blink for that. We talked about BAT, Exa, Zoxide. K9s, of course, in the shell. K9s is my favorite Kubernetes GUI for the shell. Lens or the Open Lens products or Infra are also my favorite GUIs for Kubernetes. Infra.app or just Lens, Kubernetes Lens is the paid and open source project. So there's one open source project called Open Lens. For those, so other real tools that I didn't really mention, if you're someone who ever needs to take screenshots, I think the best killer screenshot tool right now is, I don't know if you're going to call it Snapper. I don't know what to call it, how you say it, but it makes really great, beautiful screenshots. If you've seen me take screenshots, I learned it from someone else on Twitter. It allows me to like drag and drop them. It allows me to put arrows in, all the stuff that, is it Sketch? I think from Evernote has been doing for a decade, but this is now a separate tool. And it's only for Mac OS now. And I guess there's an iOS beta. Hopefully they'll come out with a Windows version. I think it might have some free features. I pay for it because it's an indie developer. Yeah, it's Snapper. So it's not free, I don't think. You can get a student discount. But honestly, I work with people and we take so many screenshots that, I mean, the Mac one is great. The built-in Mac one is great, but I needed one with a little bit more pizzazz to it, and Snapper is awesome. I love it. I use it everywhere now. Conrad's asking about K9s or K9s. Yes, I use that as a GUI, a shell GUI. I love it. There's several people that said that they use it as their preferred GUI for Kubernetes. So, Subdeep, the book I would recommend is there's two ways. First, go get DevOps Handbook 2nd edition. We talk about that a lot on this show. DevOps Handbook 2nd edition. It is the Bible. It is the guide to being a beginner DevOps engineer, because you have to know the background of DevOps, why it exists, and that's what I should recommend. If you want more of that topic by talking about all the different book recommendations, O'Reilly has tons of books on this topic: cloud native, distributed computing, all those, containers, Docker, Kubernetes. O'Reilly has a lot of those good books. There's tons of now Kubernetes books on O'Reilly. You probably should just get an O'Reilly subscription. You can also find a lot of those free when you go to conferences, or you can get free excerpts from various companies like Sneak. Eric probably knows of a couple right now that you can get excerpts or even the entire book for free in PDF format. But O'Reilly's often the company that's doing that. Trying to think of the other books that I'm reading recently. There's a couple that I actually have that are free. I got from conferences that are they're excerpts of books. So I would recommend doing that. If you have more questions, by the way, on beginning and getting into DevOps, that's next week's show. So come back here at the same time next week. I will be talking that. Cron, I mentioned, is my calendar of choice. Descript is my audio and video editor. So every one of my edited videos, all my course videos, they're all coming out of Descript. Descript is amazing. It is not free. But if you're someone who's interested at all in making content, whether it's a podcast, it's anything audio or video, they're the way to go. I've been using them for probably close to 4 years now, at least 3 years. And my whole team uses it for all of our workflow. Our podcast is made in it. Our shorts are going to be made in it on YouTube Shorts. And they start at a cheap price, and they get pretty expensive if you're in a team. So I think my whole team, for 3 of us, we pay like $100 a month. But it's so worth it for us because it just does so much cool stuff. And it gives me a robot voice, so I can actually not have to say everything. I can fix a word, and it'll replace a word with my voice using AI, supposedly. All right. Droppler is still my favorite go-to tool for sharing big files. There have been lots of tools to do this over the years. There are lots of competitors, but I keep coming back to Droppler. I have had a subscription to them for probably close to a decade. I don't know if you know, they might have a free plan. I don't know if they have. Yeah, they don't have a free plan, I don't think, anymore. But this is probably the one I have, and I can share 2 gig files and with someone using a private URL with a password if I need to. I can have it auto and self-destruct files that I share with people. So as a consultant, this is a thing I use a lot. And maybe I'll need to send somebody a file. I even send I send these files this way now for, we can use Google Drive nowadays. That's probably more common, OneDrive, Google Drive. But when I want to send something to a bunch of people and I don't want to necessarily have to maintain it or keep it in my Google Drive forever, like it's a video file and I need to share it with someone, I also use this, by the way, even with my accountant. I share files with my accountant with a self-destruct link that the file gets deleted after a day. And I will share the password with them in email, but I won't share the file with them. And because I know that they're going to keep that file around their email forever, so I'll share the file here, give them the password and email, and that way if their email gets hacked in a year or in a day, someone will click that link to try to download my taxes or whatever, and it won't exist. They'll have the password to a file that doesn't exist on the internet. And then the file on the internet can't be, it would have to be brute forced because the password isn't stored in it. So anyway, that's something that I do because, when you're trying to pass files in a reasonably secure way, sometimes it can be tricky, but they have self-destruct links that work great. Anyway, Eric's pointing out info on the Kubernetes book. There's a book club. By the way, Eric, is that your all's book club? You co-host a book club. Okay, that's what I was looking for. So co-hosting a book club, that's perfect. Everybody, I recommend Eric. Anything Eric says, anything Eric does, I recommend it. Go check out those books. Any of these apps can be found for free on sites with cracked software. That might be true, but I don't do that. I am a content creator. I live off of people buying my stuff. So I try really, really hard not to steal anyone else's stuff. And I try to respect copyright. So I understand that not everybody can afford everything. But I would not advocate for stealing stuff. I used to do that when I was a kid, but I've grown up. I don't do that anymore. I pay for things or I don't use them because copyright owners deserve their compensation. And if they don't, then I wouldn't buy it. and I wouldn't recommend buying it if you don't believe them or believe it's worth it. 20 years ago, I did get caught. My internet download provider yelled at me for downloading a movie, a copyright Hollywood movie 20 years ago, and I almost lost my internet because of it, because it was a stupid movie. I didn't even like it. I don't even know what movie it was. It was a dumb movie, and that was kind of my last thing that I remember deliberately trying to avoid copyright. And ironically, today, I live off of you all not stealing my courses, which are available on all of the websites, right? Like, you can find torrents of my courses, but my livelihood depends on people not doing that, at least most people. And I sell the courses with a coupon for less than $20. So you're literally, with my courses, paying less than $1 per hour of content. So I try to make them affordable as possible. By the way, some of the other stuff I use, Privacy Badge. Can't highlight Privacy Badge enough. Privacy Badger is I'm a big fan of EFF. I don't actually have their poster up yet, but I'm a big fan of EFF. I donate money to them when I can, and I support EFF, the Freedom Foundation, the Electronic Freedom Foundation. They're the people that basically, that lady that gets in trouble back 20 years ago. She got in trouble because one of her kids stole a bunch of music on Napster, and she got in trouble, but the big record companies started to come down on her. Well, they go and they defend her in court, right? So this is a company who defends online privacy, who defends online rights, and I'm a big advocate of them. But they have a free tool called Privacy Badger that is, I think, one of the best ways to protect yourself from all the trackers. And so it's an ad tracker. I like it a little bit more than uOrigin and some of the other ones, just because, one, it's only focused on privacy. It isn't focused on removing every single thing just because it's an ad. It focuses on the things that affect my privacy. It doesn't block the things that are maybe just cookies, right? Which are normal things on the internet. Cookies are fine in a lot of times. So they actually track and keep, they sort of have a rating system, and they allow you to adjust the rating system, but you can say, I only want to block things that EFF has deemed bad for privacy. And it's pretty cool. And it's completely free. So I use that all over the place. I highly recommend it. It works in all browsers that I know of. Pocket, another thing from the Firefox team at Mozilla. So Get Pocket is how I read stuff. So if I want to read an article, I believe it's free to use. I do sign up for the premium just because Mozilla, this is all nonprofit, just like the EFF is nonprofit. Mozilla is nonprofit, so I try to give them a few dollars a year and support Pocket. And I have endless amounts of reading material there that, more importantly, is downloaded to my devices so that when I'm offline, I can still read it. I can read it in the format that it came in. So when I'm on the plane, I'm reading Pocket. So I recommend them for anything on the internet if you want to read it. And then if you're interested in my hardware, the last thing I would say on this is I have a kits site. So kits, there you go, kit.io or kit.co rather, kit.co. If you're interested in some of the hardware I use for this live stream, I keep all of that over on Kit. And you can see like my portable setup, my home setup. I am experimenting with adding a second camera this year. I don't know why, but just a second view of me in the office. And also using continuity camera. If you're someone who's on a Mac, it's a new feature where you can use your iPhone as a webcam. And I thought it was kind of gimmicky at first, but then I tried it and it's kind of amazing. And it just works, wired or wireless. It just works. It looks awesome. It looks almost as good. It's so close to looking as good as this Canon camera I have here. And you can take it with you. It's very portable. So I'm always doing these shows on the road. I will be, I think, doing one around the time at CIVO. So when I'm at CIVO Navigate in a couple of weeks, I will probably be doing a live stream from my iPhone using the continuity camera. So anyway, check that stuff out if you're interested at all in my setups. I have it all listed there. All right. Any other questions before we wrap up this amazing 200th stream? Again, so next week, on the show next week, is going to be another Q&A. So we're going to be focusing on learning Docker and Kubernetes, and all questions. Actually, maybe not just Docker and Kubernetes, but the whole container ecosystem. And then we're going to have Project Calico on February 9th. I believe that's, I'm trying to remember what days those are. So February 9th. So remember, this is happening every week. And then we're going to have a lot of the C and CF projects on the show this year. We're currently scheduling those now, as well as a couple of excited guests I'm excited about. By the way, James, if you still happen to be here, I want to get you on the show. James and we need to talk later. Eric probably needs to come back on the show this year to talk about some of the stuff that Sneak is doing. I'm volunteering him. And then whatever your suggestions are, definitely we're going to have a focus on a few shows around AI. We're going to continue to have a focus on security because the CNCF projects around security are endless. We probably should have an entire show dedicated to cosign for those of you looking at secure supply chain. So I look forward to having those. Also, if you have ideas, put them up here in the DevOps fan right there. The DevOps fan server, that's our Discord server where we're all hanging out with every day. And lastly, what can I end with? If you're a gamer, maybe we should start a channel for gaming or recreational stuff in our Discord server. I feel like that's the one lacking one. We have some great ones. I'm just going to throw them up on screen because we have some great channels in there in the Discord server. And so if you're into DevOps or just tech in general, we do focus a lot on DevOps, but not just DevOps. And if you jump over, I'm just going to full screen this puppy. See if I can't zoom in. So this is our Discord server, and we have some great stuff down in Retro Tech. If you've been around a while, we talk about old school tech a lot in there. It's actually a great channel for recreational stuff. The memes channel is just amazing. I basically don't have to go to Reddit anymore because people are just posting everything from the funny stuff on Reddit all shows up here in the memes channel. But I'm thinking we need a gaming channel in here. I try to play a little bit of a game every day or most days just to try to have some fun. I do a lot of Diablo Immortal, in case there's any of you that play Diablo. I'm excited about the new upcoming Diablo 4. I'm a Call of Duty fan. I do not play Fortnite. I tried. I'm just horrible, so I don't play it a lot. I'm more of a Call of Duty guy. So if you're in any of those, come over to our DevOps Discord server. Maybe we can create a little guild or something on one of these platforms for gaming during our limited free time when we're not doing all these other hobby projects. But that's it for the show. I have nothing else. And I'm glad you all showed up. Thank you so much again, everyone. Alexandra, I appreciate you. Martin, I appreciate you. All the thanks there. Foxy is going to be jealous of the badger. Do foxes and badgers get along? I don't know. So I appreciate you all for being here, and I will see you next week on this YouTube Live on 201. And now I'm just going to say I'm looking forward to the next 200 episodes with you. So I'll see you next week. Congrats, everybody. See you soon.